Hi, it's Elizabeth Sweetwater here. We have just launched a new pattern called the jumper, and it's a very versatile one. It has a collar and it has a V-neck and a scoop neck. There's also some sleeve options and some different lengths, so as I said, very versatile. This pattern is also very suitable for color blocking. So in this video I would like to show you how to make a color block in your jumper pattern, and I will also show you how to sew it. I will show you 3 variations. The one I'm wearing right now with a stripe, and I'll also do a chevron style and one with a two-tone color block. So enjoy this video. First of all, I will show you how to draw the pattern of this sleeveless version with diagonal stripes. I will also show you how to draw and make a variation with a collar and sleeves with a chevron design, so a stripe that will go like this. And I will also show you how to make a color block based on this facing line. So you will have 2 different colors like that. And that will be the longer version with long sleeves. So first of all, you have to draw in your design. In this case, the diagonal lines. I started a little under the V-neck and ended at the underarm point where the facing ends. The angle is about 25 degrees. But you can draw whatever angle you think looks nice. The distance between the 2 stripes is 8 centimeters. So you continue copying the diagonal line until you fill the whole pattern piece. So once you've drawn in all your diagonal lines, you are going to copy the pattern piece on some pattern paper with a fold in the middle. So you can open it up and you have a complete front part. As you can see, mine is the short version, but of course you can also make the longer version. I've also numbered all the stripes, which will make it easier later to cut out and organize your bits. You will then have to extend these diagonal lines, like so, and then you trace all the pieces and add some seam allowance. And then you end up with a lot of pieces like this. I've copied all the numbers, so you still know what is what. I also put a grain line in it, so you won't put them upside down. And as I said before, add some seam allowance. I'm going to use an open seam method, so the seams may look a bit funny, but what I did is I folded the piece over, then I cut it out, and then you get an exact copy of the corners. So these are your pattern pieces. You will then alternate the stripes when you cut out the colors. So number 1, number 3 and number 5 will be one color, and number 2 and number 4 will be one color. Then I will show you the inside of my Spencer. So you can see the open seam method I told you about, what that looks like. So you overlock first, and then you sew the seams together with a stretch stitch, and you press the seam open. That way you get the flattest result. Of course you can also just overlock them together, but then you get a bulkier seam. For the second version with the chevron stripe, I will use the second method. Because it's quite difficult to sew in a point with an open seam. So to make this one, you can just follow the steps on the Weebly tutorial, and I will now continue with the second design, the chevron. So for the next design, the chevron stripe, we'll start off with the same pattern piece again, where we've drawn on our vertical lines. The difference with the one before this is that now we only need to copy half, because we're going to cut them out on fold. So when you cut them out on fold, then you will have a mirror image going that way. So you copy these lines and then you add seam allowance, and also don't forget to write 1, 2, 3 so you don't get mixed up. So I have now cut out and prepared all my pieces. I'll show you all the pieces one by one. This is my facing. I've already overlocked the shoulder and the bottom. The collar, I've reinforced half of it with stretch interlining. Same with the facing. Then we have the back piece. I've also overlocked the shoulders, put a label in. Then we have the sleeves, cut all the notches in it, and the cuffs, and the bottom band. In this case it's a waistband because I've got the short version. So now we get to the collar block part. As you can see, all the pieces have got a chevron shape because I cut them all on the fabric fold. Okay, so now we need to pin all the pieces together. What you do is you turn it to the inside, and as you can see, I've put a little bit of reinforcement here and an extra strip in the middle, just so it won't fray or curl. And on this little strip you can measure out 1 centimeter, and you give a little clip on 8 millimeters. So don't cut all the way to the centimeter, but just a little bit above it. And this little clip will help to shape this piece. So you want to pin the bottom piece to the top piece, like this. And then you just pin on either side of the middle, like this. And then you can continue to pin the whole block, like so. And what I always do is I just baste the difficult part here in the middle. So I just baste from here to there, because it's a lot easier to sew when you've got a basted line rather than pins everywhere. So I will also pin this one to that piece, and then I will sew the blocks together with a stretch stitch on my normal sewing machine. So the blocks are now sewn together with a stretch stitch. I just sewn it on my sewing machine, and I will show you the other side. As you can see, I'm going right through that 1 centimeter point here, and then this little cut gives it room to move around. Once you've sewn it with a regular sewing stitch, then you can go over it again with an overlock. When that's done, I will sew my shoulder seams, also with a stretch stitch, and then I will iron them open, and then we're on to the collar. So here's my collar piece. I folded it over, and I'm going to close the outsides, also with a stretch stitch, and then cut this corner so you won't get bulk in the point, and turn it and iron it flat. And then I'm going to pin it around the neck. So that's up next. So we're a few steps further now. I'll explain what I've done. I've sewn the collar, turned it inside out and top stitched it. Then I pinned it all around the neck. I've sewn it with a regular stitch, and then the neck I've done with an overlock stitch. All the seams we've done before with a stretch stitch, I have now gone over them with an overlock stitch. So the next step is now to pin the facing to the neck. I have indicated where 1 centimeter is from the edge, and you start by pinning the middle first, And then you find the shoulder, which is here, and this bit of overlocking wants to go over the seam, like so. And now you can pin the rest of the facing. So once the whole neck is pinned, then you sew it again with a stretch stitch. You give a little clip here in the middle. Then you can iron open the seam and fold the facing towards the back. And then you can iron it flat and top stitch all the way around the neck. So I'm now a few steps further. The collar is now in between the outside and the facing. I've sewn in the sleeves, making sure that the facing is sewn into the armhole, and I've sewn the side seams. If I'm going a bit too fast, of course, there is a step-by-step tutorial on elizabethsweetwater.weebly.com, so then you can follow all the steps to make the jumper. Final thing to do is to attach the cuffs and the waistband. So what I've done is I've indicated the middle of the bottom of the front and the back, and I've done the same with the waistband, putting pins in the middle, pins on the side, and the same with the cuffs. So what you do is you start pinning by putting the two middle ones on top. Then you go to the side seam, pinning that one, and then you stretch it and you pin the area in between. And that way you're going all round. Same with the cuffs. And then you can first sew it with a regular stitch and then overlock or overlock directly. So now the cuffs are sewn on and the waistband is also sewn on, and I've top stitched about half a centimeter above it. So this one is finished. Now there's one more option I would like to show you. We're going back to our pattern. This time I'm going to make the long version. The idea is to separate the facing part from the body and use two different colors for both pieces. And then in between I want to stitch a piping band. So what you do is you copy this bit and this bit on some pattern paper, like so, and add some seam allowance with each part. I will now cut them out and show you how to put the piping in and connect the two pieces together. So I've now cut out my pieces in contrasting colors. What I've done here is I took a strip of fabric of 2.5 centimeter wide, I folded over, pressed it, and then you sew it on 1 centimeter from the edge, and then you overlock it. I've also overlocked the shoulders and the edge of the bottom bit. Then I've already prepared my cuffs and waistband, my facing also overlocked, my collar is already prepared, sleeves are cut out, notches cut, and my back piece also overlocked the shoulders. So now these two pieces have to be pinned together. I've already indicated the middle of both pieces. So you start with pinning the middle, then the outer edge, and then the area in between. So do this on both sides, and then when you stitch two pieces together, you can just follow this existing line and you stitch it with a stretch stitch. And then you can fold it open, iron it flat, and if you like you can also top stitch along the line. And after that I will also attach my back to the front. So the pieces are now sewn together, as you can see. I've ironed it open so it's a nice and flat seam, and I've given it the top stitch, and I've also attached the collar to the neck. Instead of the V, I will show you that you can also sew the neck in a more rounded shape. I've drawn it on the facing part. This is the existing V shape, but I've drawn something a little bit more rounded above it. So I will follow this line when I stitch it, and then you will see that you get a more oval neckline rather than a V neckline. Pin it like I did before. Shoulders. And the space in between. So then once it's sewn, the collar will sit in between the facing and the front. After I've sewn this, I will also overlock the back neck. So fast forward quite a few steps. The facing is now sewn around the neck, turned and top stitched. So I top stitched all the way around the neck. The sleeves are sewn in, the side seams are done, and the cuffs and the hip band is attached and also top stitched. That's it, 3 different color blocks made with 1 pattern. So I hope you've enjoyed this video about color blocking your jumper pattern, and most of all that you're inspired to make yours. Of course, the tutorials can all be found on elizabethsweetwater.weebly.com, and you can purchase the patterns in our new web shop, elizabethsweetwater.nl. So if you like the videos, please subscribe, and I hope I can see you next time.